It's only appropriate that I speak about the following topic during this week's Parsha, which is Shmot, or the beginning of the book of Exodus. So I hear from a lot of people, family and friends, and people that I come across, and when I tell them that I'm moving back to Israel, or that I made Aliyah, or that I'm making Aliyah, or what I call Aliyah 2.0, they tell me that, there's a lot of Israelis who leave Israel. And then this person, whoever it is, starts telling me the reasons, giving me the reasons why Israelis leave Israel. Or basically they start laying out to me the reasons why it's difficult to live in Israel, and how, what I'm doing is insane. What I and, thousands of people from North America and the Western world have done is insane, or it seems a little bit strange, it seems a little bit odd. And what these Israelis are doing makes sense, and we should, take heed of their example, and we should be just like them, and we should have their desires and their wants and their life experiences, and we should therefore stay in America. Because, of course, if Israelis are leaving Israel, then it must be horrible, right? It must be very hard, it must be challenging, it must not be worth it, and there's nothing for you there, Everybody's coming here, even though Israel has 7 million people, and there are more Jews now in Israel than in America. But that's a different story, separate conversation. So, I'll just tell you guys that I have a few answers, usually, that I give. I don't really have, usually these comments are made kind of in passing. People meet me and it's like, it's a very short conversation. But when I have the opportunity to give them a response, a proper, it's called unpacking, this is the answer that I give them. What we have to understand as human beings is that we are, partially a product, obviously, of our genetics, but partially we're a product of our experiences. These Israelis who end up leaving Israel, more often than not, if you meet them, and I meet them all the time, a few of them are actually my really good friends. One of them is my really good friend, and I know all about his story, what he experienced there in Israel. More often than not, their issue is not about necessarily the country, or necessarily even the bureaucratic system and all the challenges, and even the parnassah and the income and all these things, and the army, and you could just go on and on and on and on, social, whatever it is. Their issues are that they experienced certain things wherever they lived, in the city that they lived, or the neighborhood that they lived. Certain things with their family, certain things, with a business associate, certain things with certain people in certain situations, and they experienced it enough times to the point where all they want to do is just escape. So now, what is the best place to escape to? If you want to escape Israel, or if you live outside of America and you ever some that poor experience where you're living, the best place to escape to is to America. If you want to escape, most of what these people are doing, apart from wanting to make income and this and that, a big part of what these people are doing, these Israelis who come to America, is that they are escaping. It provides an escape. My parents, we left the Soviet Union, and it's funny, my mother just told me that, Greg, in the beginning, when we first applied to leave the Soviet Union in 1977, our goal was to go to America. We wanted to go to America and make a success of ourselves, and our relatives were there. We knew people there who came there in the early 70s, mid 70s, and they were already doing well after a few years. We wanted to go to America because we wanted to be, to succeed. She goes to me, after 10 years of being refuseniks in the late 80s, She said it wasn't even about America at that point. It was just we wanted to get the hell out of the Soviet Union. She said, you could have sent me to the moon, I would have gone there. I would have gone to Antarctica. Anything but the Soviet Union. Right? For these Israelis, it's not really about the country. It's not really about the bureaucracy. It's not really about that, or not really about this. If it was, then all Israelis would have left, and all Israelis would stop dealing with this stuff. But, you know, a lot of them stay. A lot of them stay knowing, the people that grew up there, knowing that, you know, the business they just closed, you know, they're going to open another business, and it's going to be the same challenges, right? Same bureaucratic challenges, taxes, what have you, right? Which, by the way, the Israeli government is working to alleviate. Slowly, but they're working on it. So now, I think an even bigger component. So now, I think that an even bigger component, you know, I just outlined for you guys the micro component. I think that the macro component is something that I notice has been going on in Israel, which is basically the erosion of the Zionist mission. It's something that happened over time, and it's something actually the Rav Kook spoke about in his writings about 100 years ago. He said that they would need to be constantly invigorated and reinvigorated. For example, if you look at, you know, just the history of how Israel was built up as a country in modernity, people came from the, you know, in the mid-1800s from Europe, in the first Aliyah, and it's interesting, you can kind of liken it to, you know, America a little bit, in terms of how America got started. People came, there was nothing here, and there was nothing there, you know, there was nothing here. They came on the Mayflower in the 1805, 1807, 1605, 1607. You know, if you do the math, it took America about 170 years to become a nation. And then there was actually a similar story. They, you know, the British were colonizers, the colonialists, and it took the people, the settlers, the people who left because of religious persecution, they left to build, you know, a land, to build up the land, to build infrastructure, and they finally, after 170 years, detached from this colonial entity. But it took them 170 years. With Israel, people moved in the mid-1800s, and after, you know, and then there was like 3 aliyahs, multiple aliyahs, the first aliyah, the second aliyah, the third aliyah, and finally the British were kicked out, you know, in the early 40s, in the mid 40s, and finally, you know, the Jews declared a state of their own. So, and Rav Kook, so now you have this whole thing, Rav Kook spoke about it. You have this whole thing where now, after all these years, you know, kind of this, just as in America, this whole kind of patriotic Zionist dream ideal is eroding. Why is it eroding? Because enough generations have passed and people forgot why they, you know, why we're in the land. Why are the Jewish people specifically in the land of Israel? You know, it's a lot of factors. You know, the anti-religious movements and the media and all this, you know, different things. This education system, whatever you want to call it. But after a while, people begin to lose the plot of why we're in the land, right? The very people who you'll meet in America, Israelis, most of them, interestingly enough, are the Sephardic Jews, whose grandparents came to Israel, and parents also. For example, European Jews, right? A lot of European Jews came to Israel, but a lot of European Jews, when, you know, there was mass migrations happening in the turn of the last century, middle of the 20th century, a lot of people came to America, but a lot of people came to Israel. With respect to the Sephardic Jews, you know, the parents and the grandparents of the people that you meet today in New York and New Jersey, they had no other place to go to but Israel. Nor did they want to go to any other place but Israel. They pined to go to Israel. The people of Iraq, you know, the Jews of Iraq, the Jews of Morocco, of Yemen, of Tunisia, of Algeria, of Libya. I think the only Jews who actually came more than came to America than to Israel are the Syrian Jews. That's a whole other, different story, different reason for how that all happened, right? There's a lot of more Syrian Jews, I think, in America than there are in Israel. But even so, they're very, very pro-Israel. So it's interesting that now the kids and the grandkids of these Sephardic Jews who pined to go to Israel and came to go to Israel, no other place, are now leaving Israel and coming to a place like America or Canada or whatever, or even places like like Europe, Australia. Why are they doing this? Because if you encounter challenges and hardships, and you live in a country where you basically forgot why you're there, or the your personal, let's put it this way, I don't know, economic welfare trumps or is put above why you're there in the land, this is what's going to happen. Conversely, what's happening with American Jews in the United States who choose to make Aliyah, or Jews in Canada, Jews in England, Jews in these different places who choose to make Aliyah, they say to themselves, listen, I accomplished what there is to accomplish in America. I did it. We did it. Even either as individuals or as a collective, there's nothing more for me to do here. There's a land that I davened for, that I pined for. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's not complete. But you know what? Compared to America, meaning compared to the chronology and the history of America, as I mentioned before at the beginning of this video, it took America 170 years from the time the first people landed on Plymouth Rock to become a nation. It took another 200 years to get to the point from becoming a nation, still having slavery, to have fighting a war over slavery, industrial revolution, building up the country, a world war, and then finally the Civil Rights Act. It took America like 400 years to become a civilized country, maybe, if that. And I'm not even sure it's there yet. The debate is still, the jury's still out. The debate's still on about that. A lot of circles in American society. You can make the case that we're not, or we were and we stopped being, whatever. Okay. Israel, people built up the land. It took them, a few years. Israel, by the 1920s and 30s, already had an infrastructure. Yes, you could say the British were there, they helped, whatever it is. The first people came in the late 1800s. The British weren't there. The Ottoman Empire was there. It was the Ottoman Empire. So it took them, relatively speaking, a short time to build up an infrastructure. By the time Israel declared itself as a state, we had everything. I mean, we had, however they work, inferior, superior, whatever. The point is, we had it. We had a currency. We had a postal service. We had an army. We had all the basic infrastructure that you need to have a country. We had a government. We had a parliament. Whatever, businesses, organizations. The country was built up, and now we are, 70 years later, and now we have technology, real estate. We got Jerusalem back as our capital. We got Judea and Samaria back. You could say we fought wars and self-defense or what have you. The Jewish people are back, and it only really took us in modernity about 120 years, roughly, give or take, 140 years. Now you're saying America's the greatest country in the world. It took America 400 years from the time the first people landed on this land, on the soil, till today, to build it up to what it is today. It's taken Israel a third of that time. Ladies and gentlemen, you can only imagine what's going to be with Israel if the rate, what I call the rate of improvement, or the rate of change, is so fast. What's going to be with Israel in 5 years? I remember this was right before, I'll never forget this, right before I moved back to America, I was actually visiting here, and I went to a Shabbat meal of this very well-to-do gentleman here, and he asked the question of everybody at the, he has real estate in Israel, and he's very active, whatever. He asked the question of everybody sitting at the table, where do you see Israel? I want all your individual answers. Where do you see Israel in 10 years? And I said to him, with all due respect, so-and-so, I'm not going to say his name, I think you're asking the wrong question. I think the question you should be asking, where do you see Israel in a year? Or where do you see Israel in 6 months? Ladies and gentlemen, I go to Israel from the time that I left, and I've been living in America for the past 6 years, but I've been traveling to Israel at least once a year. Almost every year. I spend every extra dime to travel there. And every time I come back, there's always some improvement or something that I thought I was going to have an issue with dealing with that is no longer an issue. Little things here and there, little, what's called creature comforts, life things, daily, day-to-day life things. Sometimes, they're on an individual level, on a micro level. Sometimes they're on a macro level. About a year ago, finally, or 2 years ago, they completed the light rail that takes you from Jerusalem Central Station to the airport in 23 minutes, in 20 minutes. It used to be you had to take a train and to switch onto the train and go to take that train to to finally get to the airport, this and that, or take a bus and put all your luggage. And it's a whole thing. It's a whole to-do. The main complaint I hear from Anglos in Israel is everything's a schlep, right? So it used to be that everything's a schlep. There's still some things that are a schlep and other things that are not a schlep. But you know what? It's taken us only 140 years to get to this point. It took America almost 400 years to get to where they are, to get to a full functioning, you understand? So, I think that what Rav Kook wrote about 100 years ago, he wrote that there would be an invigoration or a reinvigoration of the Zionist or of our Jewish mission, and it's going to come from people from people constantly reinvigorating that idea and constantly coming to the land of Israel, making aliyah. We had the first aliyah, the second aliyah, the third aliyah. People moved for various reasons. And now what you guys are witnessing, and it's happening in a trickle, little by little by little by little. It's been happening since pretty much since shortly after the 1967 war, where we took back Judea and Samaria, and there was a lot of people, communities in America, Jews in America, who came and became part of the Yeshuv movement because they saw, wow, prophecy is happening before our eyes. The things we're learning about in our yeshivas in Brooklyn and in Baltimore and in wherever we are coming to fruition before our very eyes. And so American Jews, Orthodox people were like, wow. Not everybody, but a lot of people were like, wow, oh my God, it's happening. So maybe it's time to get up and go. It's a mitzvah. So a lot of people did that in the 70s, in the 80s. My friend was born in Israel to American parents who made aliyah as individuals, and they met in Israel in the 80s. And you could say, well, they're idealists, this and that, but why else move? What, for the as we call it in Russian, for the kolbasa, it's called in Russian kolbasna emigracja, the sausage immigration. Why are we going to move for the money? Because they're handing out sausages, hot dogs? No. Yes, and it's hard. It's difficult. These people moved not when it was easy, not when Israel was a startup nation and high tech and light rail and speed trains and all this stuff. These people moved when it was very hard. When Israel, you had to go downstairs to use the phone. It was one phone for the whole building, right? And we're talking like early 80s. This is already when America had, the whole world had phones. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, and these people did it. So when Rav Kook spoke about, he said that there's going to be a reinvigoration of that old idea, or that idea, original idea, and it will, wax and wane. And yes, people are going to leave the country, and they're going to forget about why we're even there. They're going to forget about why their grandparents came from Iraq and Yemen and from Tunisia and from all these places. And they're going to say, I'm going to, what I think are greener pastures. I'm going to America. And they're going to sit in America and say, listen, I love Israel, but it's like this, it's like that. I can't live there. I can't. Okay. No, I can't blame them. That's their experience. If you experience a thing for a long enough time, you will get what's called disenchanted and jaded and fed up with it, and you just won't. That's it. I don't blame them. I don't blame these guys. But you know what? Conversely, maybe it's the job. Maybe it's the job of people like myself and other people who already made Aliyah, families, to come in and take the place of the people who are, understandably tired and jaded and to take their place and to reinvigorate that idea back into the country, into our mission, into our nation. Otherwise, really, if we don't do that, eventually everybody's going to leave Israel. Everybody's going to just get tired of it, fed up with it, and just pick up and leave because, it's hard. And at the end of the day, friends, my message harkens back to nothing more than the Torah. The parsha that talks about the spies. And really, we have a choice, ultimately. We can be the 10 spies, or we can be the 2 spies. We can say all these challenges and all these bureaucracy and all these issues and taxes and meches and all these things are, those giants that were spoken about, and we are like crickets and we cannot deal with those giants. Or we can realize that the simple concept that the fear of the thing is actually bigger than the thing itself, and that human beings are capable of tackling with a lot of challenges. And even the Talmud says, the Gemara says, the land of Israel was acquired with tests. You are going to be tested. That's just how it works. That is the mechanism. That is the system. That's just that's par for the course. It's to be expected. But once you get over those hurdles, I'm telling you, friends, I lived in this place for 3 years. I'm moving back there in exactly a week, God willing. And I can tell you, once you get past the little things and even some big things, there is absolutely nothing more rewarding for a Jew than to be in the land. And even the people, I'm sure the people that left Israel, grew up in Israel, and are watching this and wish that they could be there and wish that it was easier, even those people, I'm sure, deep down inside, agree with what I'm saying. And so, friends, I'm just going to say, listen, I'm not, again, as I always say, I'm not telling people to get up and pack your bags and leave and drop everything and this and that and the other. I'm just saying that, just giving you perspective, that ultimately our future is there. And to always have your eyes facing east. If you're in America, always have your eyes facing east. If you're in Europe, eyes, south, east, whatever. Eyes always on Jerusalem. Whether you're mobilizing, packing your bags, whether you're still here, doing your thing and supporting Israel from abroad. But listen, this is the history of our people. It was written by Hashem that some people maybe had to grow up there, live there, be born there, and then leave and come back for whatever reason. Some people were born outside and then were given the mission of coming to the land and then continuing to build it up. This is the story of our people. We're wandering. We're all over the place. Everybody's got a different story. Everybody's got a different background. But we definitely cannot be, we definitely can't follow the herd. We definitely can't, look at people who left Israel and say, oh, if they left, it must be horrible. No. That's their challenge. That's their tikkun. That was their experience. Every experience is different. I know people who came to Israel, having a great experience. I actually know people who came to Israel and had a horrible experience and left. I know people who were born in Israel and still there and love it, don't want to leave. And I know people who were born there and don't ever want to come back. So everybody's tikkun is different, everybody's story is different, friends, and but at the end of the day, that's where we're all going to be. And I think it's going to be sooner. If you ask me, where do I see Israel in 5 years? I see Israel full of 15 million Jews. Talk to you guys soon.